If you clicked on this video, you're probably wondering, why is a laptop that's nearly 4 years old being recommended in 2024? Well, almost 4 years ago, Apple revolutionized their MacBook lineup by introducing their own silicon with the M1 chip and ditching the decades-old Intel processor. This came at a time where Apple's MacBook lineup was starting to stagnate in performance and starting to fall behind their competition. Now, with the upgrade to the M1 chip, this is probably the greatest generational leap in performance in a very long time. Now, with that being said, is that M1 MacBook Air still worth purchasing in 2024? Well, the short answer is, it absolutely is, and it's probably the best value you can get in a laptop today. Now, when Apple switched to the M1 chip back in 2020, this was a completely different chip from the Intel lineup. This was an ARM-based processor that used its cores very efficiently, and it had everything unified with memory and storage. That meant everything worked seamlessly, more efficiently, and provided more performance. So not only did you have CPU cores, you had GPU cores all integrated into a single chip. As a matter of fact, the M1 processor was so strong, and to this day, it keeps up with most desktop computers. I can personally attest that the Ryzen 7 processor went neck to neck with the M1 chip, and for all the applications that I can run on my desktop, if they're available on my MacBook and the macOS, the M1 can run them just fine, which is so surprising comparing a desktop CPU with fan cooling to a passively cooled CPU on a laptop. And guys, smash that subscribe button if you're interested in more Mac and tech related content. I post weekly videos around reviews, unboxings, and just general tech topics, so also hit that notification bell if you want to stay up to date with all the new content. Now, since the launch of the M1 chip, Apple has rapidly expanded their M lineup all the way to M3 Pros in their MacBook Pro lineup. More specifically to the MacBook Air, there's an M2 version as well as the M3 version. And just recently, Apple announced that it's officially discontinued the MacBook Air M1. So you're probably asking this question to yourself, why am I sitting here recommending you a discontinued product by Apple? Well, the reason is, while Apple has discontinued the production of the MacBook Air M1, retailers are still selling it, and now cheaper than ever. As a matter of fact, Walmart is now selling the M1 MacBook Airs for just $699 USD, which is such a crazy price for a MacBook. Not only that, a quick search online, you'll find the M1 MacBook Airs just as cheap. As a matter of fact, you can find a number of them around the same price on Amazon. I actually have a few links in the description if you're interested in checking them out. Now, more so than just the price, I want to reiterate that the M1 chip is still more than capable of accomplishing all the tasks that you need to complete, even to this day. And before we get to that, I just want to go over the general design and the inputs and the specifications of the M1 MacBook Air. Now, the M1 MacBook Air is the last MacBook Air to have its traditional clamshell look, and it gives that very slim and sleek looking MacBook, something that MacBooks used to differentiate between the MacBook Airs and Pros back in the day. Now, the new M2 and M3 MacBooks follow the more traditional MacBook Pro layout, which I'm not personally a fan of, so I really love this wedge-shaped look. Now, accompanied by its very slim design, it's also only 2.8 pounds, making it one of the lightest laptops available on the market. In terms of display, you get a 13.3-inch backlit LED display with a 2560 by 1600 resolution, much higher than the traditional 1080p resolutions that you get on 13-inch laptops. You also get 400 nits of brightness, so slightly brighter than most laptops, meaning you can work in brighter conditions and sometimes even in direct sunlight without it affecting your work. Now, in terms of ports, you get two USB-C/Thunderbolt 4 ports on the left side, as well as a 3.5mm headphone jack. So with the USB-C ports, that allows you with very high transfer speeds, and it allows you to connect one external display with 6K resolution and up to 60 Hz of refresh rate. Now, my favorite part of the MacBook Air is the touchpad as well as the backlit keyboard. It's very pleasant to type on, and because it's a wedge shape, putting your hands on the keyboard and typing makes it very natural, and you don't get carpal tunnel with the way that your wrists are placed. You also get a Touch ID button, meaning you can use your fingerprints to log into anything that requires a password through Apple's biometric verification. Now, the battery life on Apple's website is listed at 15 hours, but with real-world application and use, you can get anywhere between 7 to 12 hours, depending on how intensive the applications are. Simply stated, you can take this MacBook with you at the beginning of the day, forget about the charger, don't have to worry about charging, and bring it back and it'll still have charge. This is perfect for people who are working on the go, and especially for students. Now, with a little bit of history of the M1 MacBook Air and the specs out of the way, let's talk about who should consider buying this MacBook. Now, first and foremost, anyone that is price conscious and wants the best performance to value should consider this laptop. Like I mentioned, this laptop is now being listed at $699 USD. And if you were to do a performance to price ratio, this ranks very high even compared to the laptops that have been released in 2023 and 2024. Now, to put things into perspective, the M2 MacBook Air is currently being listed at $999 USD for its base model configuration, and the M2 chip was only an incremental increased performance over the M1. As a matter of fact, I did an entire video review on the MacBook Air M2 and I compared to the M1. You can actually check it out right here if you want to see that review. Now, the next determining factor of if you should purchase this laptop or not is user case. Now, most people that are purchasing a base model configuration of a MacBook Air that's 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage are not intending to use it for intensive application use. Most of these users are either students or people that just want a laptop to do day-to-day activities like web browsing, streaming, or taking notes in basic office suites. Now, the bottom line is the M1 chip is more than capable of doing day-to-day tasks. As a matter of fact, it can do a lot of intensive tasks, even with just 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. Now, I've used my MacBook Air for video editing, 4K video on Adobe Premiere Pro, as well as using it for Photoshop and Lightroom without having any issues with stuttering or any hiccups whatsoever. Now, very simply put, you do not need to spend more money on the newest M lineup of chips to do the same day-to-day tasks that an M1 chip can do. That's why the M1 MacBook Air is still a very viable option for this user segment group. Now, I did mention earlier that Apple has discontinued the production of the MacBook Air M1, but what they haven't done is discontinued updates and security patches for the MacBook. The MacBook Air M1 still receives macOS updates as well as security updates, and it's going to continue to do so for at least another 3 years, for at least what Apple's history has tended to show, that most of their MacBook lineups do get at least 7 years of support with Mac operating system updates and security patches. So for people that were concerned about not getting these updates and being vulnerable while being online or to any potential hacks, you don't need to be worried. Apple will still provide support for that. Now, I've gone through multiple macOS updates over the last 3 years and security patches, and I can say very firmly that my MacBook has not suffered any performance setbacks whatsoever. Now, another reason, and this might be niche, and not everyone tends to do this, is gaming and emulation. Believe it or not, the M chips from M1 all the way to M3 are great emulator devices. So you can play games from the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation on your M1 MacBook Air without any issues. So this is a very cool thing you can do. And like I said, not everyone likes to game and not everyone likes to install emulators, but the M1 MacBook Air is more than capable. As a matter of fact, I made an entire video of how you can emulate on a MacBook Air M1, and it's very, very capable. And being able to game and play all the classics on your laptop is a pretty cool thing in itself. And of course, another reason to purchase this laptop is the battery life. And I mentioned the battery life being 7 to 12 hours, but more than just performance, a lot of people just want a laptop that will work and power on when they need it to power on. And the M1 MacBook Air has astounding and very, very good battery life. So if you want a laptop that is cheap, that has high performance, and you know will not run out of battery through a day's use, then this is an option you should consider. So those are some of the reasons why I recommend that you should get a MacBook Air M1. It's a very capable device. I've made multiple videos on the M1 MacBook Air. As a matter of fact, I made a very similar video last year in 2023 why you should buy it. And I'm making something again for this year because I'm still very passionate and very confident that this is one of the best laptops and the best value MacBooks ever created by Apple. Another thing I want you to take into consideration when you're looking at laptops, when you're doing research, even the M2 and M3 lineup, they use the M1 as the benchmark. The M1 was so strong and so powerful, it is the benchmark for all future Apple devices. And if you look at the Geekbench scores or just general benchmarks in general, the difference between the M2 and M1 as well as the M3 and M1 is not that staggering. So like I said, the price to performance ratio on the M1 MacBook Air is still one of the best, even across all laptops, whether it be Windows and Mac. Now, these are just my 2 cents. My whole goal on this channel is to be honest and provide consumers the best advice so you can get the best products at the cheapest price point possible so you don't waste your money. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, and if you really like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you have a MacBook Air M1 and let me know if you're intending to purchase one. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.